All right. Welcome back. Darrell is going to be sharing with us a template, and I am cracking up because Darrell seems to be a Marvel fanatic like me. I'm a Marvel fan, and I can see Nick Fury and Iron Man and Thor as the resources. That is hilarious. I've never seen anything like that.
So Phil, I know you're heavy into agile, and one of the efforts that I'm doing at my work space is trying to implement agile,
Mm,
um, but implementing agile with restrictions, meaning not having the most up-to-date Microsoft project, meaning
mm.
Microsoft 2019.
Oh, yeah.
So building an IMS, which is what we call an integrated master schedule, and that's the main term for schedulers and schedules that DoD uses um, to publish the amount of work that's being done and how it's being planned and measured against the actual work.
Mm,
So I wanted to show this in regards to it can be done um, in the most simpler way um, because done I developed this IMS or this schedule in my work laptop. So a lot of restrictions were applied.
mm,
So I don't have that Kanban type of I guess effect to this schedule. It's
right.
just all basic sprints. As you can see here, we got sprint
Mm,
one,
okay.
sprint two, and then we got the
Mm,
backlog. Um, with
mm,
the resources, with the Avengers
mm,
resource loading, um, using fixed units because when we are resource loading, it's best to use fixed units
mm,
instead of fixed durations. Yes, we could use fixed durations, but at the same time, you're more concentrating on the work percent complete
mhm.
with the hours being spent for each individual resource. And I know you had a schedule up where you had fixed durations and fixed units, and you had work hours
Right.
in one column. We also do track that, but we also focus on effort-driven tasks,
Mm,
meaning this is connected to resource loading in some way. So in the most simpler term, and I'm not sure if you um, uh, explain this in your sessions about effort-driven tasks. Have you?
to some degree, yeah.
Okay, okay. But my understanding of effort-driven tasks are the amount of resources you have in a schedule, um, allocating it in the most simpler way, and in my interpretation. Not to get any lingo out there as schedulers, or as a scheduler, but it's just making sure your resources are not overworking each other.
Mhm.
So as you see here on task 2 and 3, you have Captain America for both resources. So the reason why it's not effort driven is because Captain America is assigned to those two tasks at a 50-50% commitment for each task. So it's cut in half. So Captain America's time is a 50% of commitment for task number 2,
Mm,
and the other 50% goes to task number 3. Now, if it's effort driven, you're able to go into the project information, go under resources, and have you shown your students this?
this, yeah, how to go into resources and yeah.
Okay, I don't want to overwhelm or confuse,
No, you're good.
your
You're good.
students. Okay, okay,
They're
because
following.
okay, okay. So with effort-driven tasks, is you're able to massage the type of resources or the same resources for other commitments in your schedule. So right now, if task number 2 and task number 3 was effort-driven, um, you're able to manipulate the units in some fashion. and it all depends on your stakeholder or what is needed for that specific resource. You're at my perspective, the scheduler is not the gatekeeper to it all. So we're always trying to get these the answer from our stakeholders. So we're not practicing bad habits. We're opening up Microsoft Project and manipulating the numbers. We're always asking, is this what you want? Is this realistic? Can this resource be committed to 2 tasks at 100%? So it's always asking questions and trying to unpack the reason of why you're trying to commit a resource to a specific task, because each resource it's a dollar. It's part of money. You're moving money around, and not trying to be closed-minded, but with every task there's a resource. With every resource, it's tied to money, and with money loss, that's money loss, and you have to keep that under control, because you don't want your resource to be overburning or overworked. So with effort-driven tasks, at keeping it at a most simpler terms, it's more of just trying to make sure your resource loaded at a equal level in that capacity. There's more to it, but we can go all day for it. So lessons learned, to be honest, to work around it at that generic level, as you see here with Captain America. Well, Captain America is not a good example, but put software engineer. So if we were to have software engineer as a resource here, there's other ways that you can massage and, I guess, work around resource loading by using the advanced tab. So what I would focus on is making sure your project options are up to par, meaning your task type, the calendar, the WBUS code, the earned value method. This can all be found and tweaked at the project options on the advanced tab and scheduling tab. So why I'm always saying that is because if you ensure and if you manipulate what you want on the project options, it will automatically assign it to all tasks that you're creating. So you won't have to mess with these types of areas in your schedule. It would just be generated, from that project options. But to work around the resource loading, what I've done in the past, and it worked well for me, was clicking effort driven. And since I don't have any information filled out for the calendar and the code, the work breakdown structure code, this option here, the scheduling ignores resource calendars. If you have that checked, it will automatically ignore resource rules to your schedule. So I found that very useful to my advantage when I'm resource loading, but not resource loading, and saying that to my stakeholders. So that's the workaround to saying, yes, we're resource loading, but no, we're not.
So we got resources in there, but they're not driving the schedule, huh?
Correct. And politically speaking, that's the better approach, to not confusing or having that friction between you and your stakeholders. Because once you start digging down to resources, with putting down actual names, it can be seen as arbitrarily added, and then that's a breach, to the contract and the agreement. So sticking at that generic level, it's a safe spot for a scheduler. Also, the other thing is I try to encourage more of using deadlines instead of leads and lags,
Absolutely, yeah.
because it keeps the critical path in shape, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't hinder it if you
Doesn't
use
restrict it.
deadlines. Yes, yes, that's
So,
correct.
so this is a good one for Jim. So, Jim, your big project next year, instead of using some of those constraints, you could also look into using deadlines. So that could be a good tip, you know. And the way deadlines works is different. Instead of you having a constrained schedule, all you have is a green arrow pointing to when it should be. And when you're off, you can see. Can you show us one of those deadlines, Darrell?
Oh yeah, yeah. Switch it to. Let's do this. It's completely unclassified, Phil. So it's nothing. I'm sharing as.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So you can find us in the World Wide Web. So just keep just being straight and honest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But what I try to do is tell the story. So when I provide the bad news to stakeholders, I try to add colors, charts, bars, and I try to steer away from numbers. And that's of course human nature, and that's hands down very effective. So as you see here on my schedule, I have colors like traffic lights to, I guess, pay attention to. And then on the right side is more of how I want to tell the story. So what I developed that's very useful and helpful in my work is being able to open this project file up and telling a story to my client. For example, with tasks number 436, foundation removal is what they call it. And this is, of course, throughout a ship. And what this task was meant to do was install a specific software on here, on a specific ship. Since we do resource loading, but not resource loading, this is generically resource loaded. In order for me to tell the story, I focus on 4 columns that I focus on mainly because I'll be able to tell each stakeholder if and when we were off our budget and behind our schedule. Meaning, you don't see the legend here, but with the traffic lights, the blue stands for completed, the red stands for delayed. Other colors in here, as far as the traffic lights, are yellow and green. Yellow meaning it's an area of concern, and we should discuss it and monitor the progress of it. Green is in progress, and we're expected to be on track. So as you see here, yes, they completed this task on October 8th, 2021, but they were overall, as a whole task, they encountered delays. By showing that, I'm able to go to the chart and say and explain, hey, they were delayed at their baseline start on May of 2020. They slipped. They started to slip at the very start of the task, and they continue to slip throughout the time from 2020 throughout 2021. They picked up, which they improved in Q3 of August, of the beginning of August. Now, they did deliver their product, but they experienced significant amount of delays. Also, they were also their float was out of control. They were they had a huge amount of critical negative slack, and that's more of, I don't know if you ever played around with that, Phil, the critical negative slack.
Not the Slack. more like the
Okay.
floats and more like the leads and the lags,
Okay.
but
So
not the
with the
float.
okay, so to not open up any cans of worms, the critical the critical negative slack or the float is like a bank account. You're negative. You're using your overdraft fee, and by saying that you're over negative $100, and you're waiting for your next paycheck to hit so it can clear. So the critical negative float is used to help in trying to get the schedule back on track. More ways, more methods, and that way than just putting up the slack and the float and showing the tick mark on here. It will have a bar with the purple color. I could show it to you. Never mind. It's going to be too overwhelming.
No,
I don't want to,
that would be helpful, Darrell, because it will be on record. So Renata, Jim, and Mercedes, and they're gonna have access to rewatch videos. So even if we don't get it this time, you can just show us how to get it, how to get the critical. And is that a field that you would add to show it, or would it just be a configuration of the Gantt chart?
It's a custom field where we can add formulas to it to target your critical, your not critical, your total and your free float.
Okay.
And it's mainly used in that capacity to where if you have no float or you have no option to use float, you're able to show that you don't have any more float.
So it's zero. So you're in deficit. You're bankrupt if it's negative. Yeah.
Yes.
If it's zero, you're bankrupt. If it's negative, you're in deficit.
Correct. And that's really helpful to show the purpose of trying to get that schedule back on track. Vice the regular method of showing the tick marks of the float from the total and the free. The deadlines, see if it's in, I know it's in here.
And they're of course milestones. So those, yeah, we see the milestones.
So yes, okay, so I added a deadline on here and just open up the information.
Okay.
Not that one. Phil, so this is an IMS or a schedule that's been completed. That's why. So yeah.
You would have to add a new deadline, huh?
No, not really, but I just have to find it. So on the bar chart here, you see that arrow pointing down.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's called a deadline, and it's more used for another way of using a lead and lag. So by showing that, it keeps your critical path healthy, I guess, if you put it that way. By using a deadline, you're able to keep away from the constraint types or constraint dates. And the most common constraint type we use in my line of work is as soon as possible, meaning it's each dependency is dependent upon each other. It's linear. So if task A is gonna be completed before task B has to wait on task A. So it's more of that type of environment. And fixed duration, government meaning 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. The WBS and percent complete. And at one beginning of our session, I mentioned the effort driven and the scheduling ignore resource calendars. It's checked here mainly because it's resource loaded, but it's not a requirement. So in order to I guess suffice that workaround for resource loading type of scheduling, having these two boxes checked will ignore some rules in resource loading. So by adding a deadline, you're able to monitor the progress, just as you see here on the right side of the bar chart. I keep the deadline as is. So if the stakeholders agree on a specific deadline, like say this was agreed on February or January 31st. I mean, sorry, let me just open this up. December 31st of 2021, that was their declared deadline. Now, keep in mind, this schedule also had multiple deadlines that wouldn't help in getting back the project or the schedule to get back on track. So this final deadline was agreed upon with stakeholders, and what I encouraged the stakeholders to have is to keep the deadline on and displayed, because it shows the delay. It shows that you were off, regardless of the amount of work that's been put in, the resources. It automatically shows right here that you missed this deadline, and that's more of an opportunity to discuss it.
Yeah.
Because by displaying that, you're able to be like, look, we declared a deadline at this point, and we didn't meet a deadline. So how can we better ourselves the next time around? Now that it's been declared that we missed it. And also Microsoft Project does document it down as far as missed deadlines, vice the leads or the lags. So that's why I encourage more of using deadlines instead of leads and lags. And it doesn't affect your critical path. Because it's just specifically like a marker, put it that way.
Exactly. Yeah. Versus using a must finish on or one of those.
Which one?
So I mean, if one uses constraints such as must finish on, must start on, even though it doesn't have to be that way completely, you're just going to create artificial constraints in the schedule.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And there's different types of constraints, as I know you mentioned in your sessions. I think it was the hard constraints and the soft constraints. And I think you mentioned that last time we spoke.
Yeah, the MSO, the finish no later than. So the worst, which ones are the worst? The bad offenders that are the hard constraints.
The hard constraints. And how I remember that to practice more on the soft constraints is the SNET type of acronym. The start no earlier than, finish no earlier than. Those are the soft constraints. That's beneficial to your schedule, but having a lot of that or having excessive amount of soft constraints can also disrupt your critical path.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Which is why we often advise folks starting off, don't begin whacking dates into start and finish columns, because that's immediately going to do that. And you have a lot of users who just type in dates manually into the tasks, and they don't know this. So when all is said and done, they have a schedule that it has a critical path that doesn't reflect reality, and is so constrained.
Yes, and with that, I try to encourage users to use the duration column, and these 3 columns here, the actuals from the start, finish, and actual duration. So they can copy and paste it, but this area is more for the scheduler's environment, because it measures your plan versus actuals. So giving that up, to give that opportunity to the user, hey, I just need your actual start, your actual finish, if you did finish this task, and your actual duration, and you won't be they won't disrupt your flow in the schedule.
Mm, good stuff, Darrell. So let's say your typical project, when you have these weekly or quarterly or whatever the period is kind of meetings, is what they're looking for to see something more summary level than this? Or are there other reports that they request? And what would some of those reports be?
The main reports that that stakeholders love to see is your plan versus actuals, meaning your remaining work and your cumulative work. So you could use the reports tab to your advantage,
Okay.
by having a burn down chart. It should pop up or populate.
It takes time. And that would be a burn down of resource hours, would it be?
Yes, yes. There you go. So it's just that generic type of populated burn down from Microsoft project. You're able to manipulate it in some way,
Yeah.
or to accommodate your schedule.
Got it.
You're also able to create S curves, and export it out to Excel. There's different VBAs where you can explore in some way, but with the report section, not many users tend to go this route. They tend to, the bad habits of opening a Microsoft Excel and
Yes.
PowerPoint and Visio. But
Yeah.
the honest truth is, you could develop reports right off the bat in Microsoft Project.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some pretty cool looking reports from other users, and you could manipulate it in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see in these meetings when you're presenting schedule, do you typically do 5 days out, 10 days out, or do you still show that do they want to see the entire thing of hundreds and thousands of lines?
So the reason why I showed the first schedule with Agile is, throughout these meetings, that's what we practice, but it's not really, I guess, advertised. So whenever I conduct a report, it's always like a 2-week look ahead.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it's just like Agile,
Mhm.
incrementally reporting work as what's been done and what's needed in the future. So that's basically an Agile environment, if you put it that way. So that type of mindset, it's well populated, I guess, and the meetings I attend to, they're always looking for that 2-week out type of thing.
Not the entire, I mean, you got to be able to filter what is most appropriate for the
Yes, because
next.
you're gonna lose people's attention just by showing a huge amount of work in a schedule. But using the reports, narrowing it down to why they're in that meeting, which answers, or you always got to ask those specific questions. What's done is done, and if you're not done, what are you going to do to get back on track, and how much are you overburning with the cost and the resources and so forth. So
Great
you're
stuff.
able to manipulate reports to your advantage.
Good stuff, Darrell. Thank you very much. What are some maybe closing thoughts before we go to questions that our friends may have? Do you subscribe to, there's some add-ons that people, buy, like WBS Chart Pro and some others like that. Have you ever had to use those at the request of a client, or has it pretty much been straight ahead to Microsoft Project? No fancy add-ons.
It depends on the environment. We use OpDeck, as you see here on this tab. It's a paid license, but there's an option within their website where you can use their schedule health tool that inspects different types of areas within the schedule, mainly for government use. You have your DCMA 14-point metrics, which is the metrics that we use at the DoD environment that keeps our schedule on track and how to identify those types of errors. IPM is more of other government types of environments, along with the DECMs, but they all tie in together, and it all depends on where in the government environment you're at, pretty much.
Good stuff. Yeah, that spurred my question. I saw that unique custom field, and I know that there's other, you got at risk for projects, you got at risk for Excel, which uses that same kind of add-on latch on, and WBS Chart Pro. So that's good to know. Is it an expensive tool?
For OpDeck, it's like $298 a license.
Wow.
But with this feature, it's free to download.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a link you go to, and it provides the instructions of using it. They give you a code that never expires. It's always being updated, and I guess that's part of their I guess golden feature, I guess, to attract more people to their website.
Good deal. So just to backtrack on some of the things we've heard, it's not common for government to want to use all the bells and whistles as far as resources are concerned, because costs are usually tracked in some other tools down to the letter. So this kind of just gives an approximation. It's not that you're being held to the flame, like you're 2 cents over, you're $1 over, that kind of thing.
Yeah, not in that environment or not in that capacity. You are always influencing and encouraging resource loading, because it's a more accurate picture to resource load your schedule, because it breaks down almost every dollar. If you want to go down to the very pedal, it really breaks down that dollar. But it can be overwhelming, and it can be intimidating in some way.
And it does cost money, because I remember on projects I've been on that government related, where they wanted that feature and they wanted everything tracked. There had to be a budget put aside for a scheduler to do all that work, because it's not free. So it has to be bargained in somehow into the contract, right?
Right, but at the same time, that's more beneficial at the government level, vice a contractor, because at a contractor's perspective, you don't want to track other vendors' hours, because that's bad, business, bad ethics in some way. So sticking to that generic type of leveling for resources, not targeting specific names, it's beneficial, and it's useful in ways where it can digest better in the stomach, I guess, put it that way. So like, for example, if I were to create a schedule for Praizion, and I ask for resource loading, and I ask for your hours, you're gonna raise your hand and be like, hey, no, I document my own hours. This is my business. So hands off. So that's the perspective in regards to being a contractor in that capacity.
That's a good point, because they're always going to be stakeholder related work in to some degree.
Yes.
Got it. Good deal. Thank you, Darrell. Any questions, Jim, Renata? When Darrell was going through, did anything pop into your head as a question?
Well, the one thing that still pops up for me is I wonder how Darrell would go about this issue. I've got a project here now that we're working on pretty much 8 to 5 days a week, weekdays for now. But then when there comes an installation phase that we have to do during a plant shutdown feature, where we got 10 days to do it in, and we've got to work around the clock in order to get all the work done. We already know that, you know, labor wise, we've got to do that. Would you propose putting in a different calendar? Would you prefer just taking those specific laborers and modifying their their times, or how would-
My suggestion.
also,
Oh,
and I was going to say also, would you use constraint to set that date out? Because see, right now, some of my stuff will be done by March, April of next year, but then I won't be able to do any of the install until like July.
so there's an external entity that's stopping you from completing your project or your task.
Yes.
Okay, so to help with that, that's more of a impact delay analysis, and how I would do it, or my experience of doing it is, for example, we use task number 8, create product backlog, and we experience or we have a known delay or known issue of a delay of 100 days because the software won't get to us in 100 days because of weather and so forth. All the uncertainties come to play. So how I would do it, and you're more than welcome to apply this as well. My technique, and it's been beneficial, is adding a subtask, which helps with separating the logic between it. So adding a subtask in here, and then just adding delay due to software not delivered on time. And by doing that, I would indent this to have it a child task, but I would also highlight this in red to show the external dependency, the external task that you're not responsible for. And then I would fill in the blanks, the duration, the start, finish dates. My recommendation is not to baseline it because that wasn't part of your baseline from the beginning. And if you baseline it, you're holding yourself responsible for it. So as you are developing this type of impact analysis, it's best to separate that within that task, just like you see here. And then making sure it's linked to that task at the same time with the task that's holding it up, or with the task, the successor. So let's say you have the story estimation as the successor. I will link this up as my successor to task number 10. So with trying to explain the story is I will have a external delay with, it's not my fault, on this and day, highlighted in red, and I cannot start the next task until this is done. And by keeping it simple like that, I think that would help in some capacity, at some level.
Very innovative solution. Jim, what do you think about that?
You know, it is an innovative solution. I like the idea. I'm just still wondering when you have, it's a solid thing like that, it's a big switch. It's not like a delay, not like, okay, I can't get this product. It's like computer chips right now. You can't get those in the world because of issues. So that would be like what you're talking about, I think, for a delay. But, I guess I see this as more of a, I've got to have everything done by start date.
Must start on or must finish on is
and
what
then I
you're
got to
talking.
have it finished by the end date in July.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
it's critical for me to make sure, I'm on the ball for that date.
And there's so many ways, this innovative way is, I've never really thought of this. This is,
Oh, that's
I'm going to
good,
add
yeah.
this to my goodie bag. So this is something good that one can add ad hoc if there are delays to depict it in such a way that it shows reality. And you just got to act like like you're an expert in graphed in what happened before this one and what happened after. You gotta do that nicely, and then everything will flow as normal. But you're talking about it must start on and must finish on. And Darrell, this whole talk about the calendars is it could become finicky. But what happens when you've got a team that was doing a regular 8-hour calendar, and then all of a sudden they're stepping it up to 24 hours and working like maniacs? Do you assign a new calendar, excuse me, to those tasks where the 24 hours kicks in?
And yes and no, because you're opening up dialogue for peak units in some capacity,
That's
and
true.
you're also trying to encourage either fixed duration or fixed units for that
Mhm.
specific task. Also effort driven, if it's effort driven, and does it tie to your scope, or is it an external and external task?
Mm,
So those are the questions I ask whenever I'm
mhm.
being thrown at that question to me. Is
Good.
okay, is this external?
Yeah.
Is this part of the project? Because you don't want to have scope creep.
Absolutely. So, Jim, to that end, the work that has to be done, have you guys quantified the effort involved? Could
Yes.
you really say you
Well,
have?
it's in the budget. We know how many hours it's gonna take. We know how many people it's gonna take. That sort of thing in the budget. And so that's where we came up with the duration.
Okay. And the assumption is a 24-hour calendar because you're working around the clock. So are people swapping out or are people just working flat out 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, and then they're being replaced by generic resources that mimic what the previous person was doing, or how does that work?
Let's just say we have, let's just call them installers. There'll be a set of like 3 installers from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Then there'll be another set, replace them at 7
Okay.
work to 7 a.m.
Okay.
And that'll go on for 7 days a week, pretty much.
So it's not a problem if you assign 6 installers, but because it knows it's 600%. So if at the end of the day you're saying 48 hours assigned to installers for a day, the 48 hours isn't going to show as over allocated if you say you've got 6 resources. But if you've only got 1 or 2, then of course it's going to max out. So there are many ways to skin the cat, right, Darrell? There's so many alternatives that once you know how to bend the tool, right?
Yes, but you also got to also question historical artifacts. Has this task been repeated in the past? So you can go back and get lessons learned from it and have that story. Okay, we finished this task in 20 days, but in reality, it's going to take us 15 days. There's a difference. So I would always refer back to previous schedules and measure that against your reality of things.
That's a good point. And Jim is a pioneer in his company because it's not been used before, has it, Jim? This Microsoft project in your firm?
No, project hasn't been used specifically, but I think because of the years of doing this work, they pretty much have it, down pat of how to. I mean, this company's been doing the job for 100 years, this type of work, but and multi-million-dollar contracts, so they know they got a pretty good handle on it. I'm not saying they'll keep it. You might be right. It may extend beyond a couple more days or be a couple of days short, but I really do think they've got a pretty good idea how long it's going to take with their crew and so forth.
So really your job is just to depict it. You want to depict it in the most convincing and professional way. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So it could get messy. I would err on that side of caution. I would look for a way of doing it such that you don't disrupt the flow that you have based on the calendar that you're using. So you could still use that same calendar that you use for everything else. You just need to honestly and factually, I should say, assign the resources. So if you got 6, it shouldn't pose a problem. Microsoft Project doesn't need to know that it's 48 hours worked round the clock versus 48 hours worked from 6 people working from 8 to 5 with a break. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's really up to you how you want
I
to show
could
it.
say day crew, night crew, or something like that, you know.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and just split it up that way as well. It's,
So,
Good.
Jim, have you explored with units?
I haven't thought about units. Well, what I've thought about is, you know, you can go in and like crew 1 or crew 2, you can start playing around with their working hours individually, you know, on their own, and establishing those times frames instead of a calendar. And that's what I was thinking about. I don't know if
Gotcha.
that's taken off from a unit there or not.
If you're generically resource loading, I recommend using your max units to your advantage, mainly because if you have multiple resources like business, like project team, you're able to reduce the specific unit to about 1%. And my suggestion is keep each unit at 80%. And that's being realistic, because in reality, you're only doing 80% of the work, because at 20%, you're getting settled in. You're driving to work, you're clocking in, you're getting breakfast, you're getting lunch. You're just keeping that time to get settled in and adjusting to your work day-to-day grind. So 80% is feasible, I guess, in that way, but 100% is also it's also done as well. But I try to influence 80% of max units. To open up more options, I also explored the booking type along with the generic and budget options, because it's more pleasing to the stakeholder. Because when I try to exercise this at a proposed level, it's more of this is just a suggestion. Vice committed. Committed is is hey, this is what we agreed on. This resource is committed to this time and from this time to that time. So playing around with with these two booking types, proposed and committed, it helps in communicating resource loading to your stakeholders, along with the generic and budget type, and also with playing around with the work material and cost.
Yeah, I understand where you're going there. I was working through some of this, Phil, and that's kind of where I was headed with it as well. So you kind of hit right on where I was at.
Because you could use proposed as a showstopper to striking your baseline. Because you can confidently tell yourself and your stakeholders, look, I am not confident to striking a baseline due to having proposed resources only.
Okay, right.
And they want you to baseline it, don't they, Jim? They're looking for a baseline.
Yeah, they're looking for baselines, and I think we can, you know, I don't know if you want to say overrun or, you know, the hours could, you know, undershoot or overshoot. I'll say what you said, Darrell, that there is actual, I mean, they've got the time broken down into separate spreadsheets and its own kind of off to the side of the main budget spreadsheet that breaks down the travel time and the hours per day as well, you know, so that's already being done. I think it's just more or less showing that you've got it there, you're using these resources. Plus I had, you know, my engineering manager wants to use more, he wants to set up a resource pool for his designers and have us project managers pull from that resource pool. So I was looking that as well. So,
Gotcha. Phil, have you expressed using more of a incremental baseline method, more like of the interim option?
Yeah, so Jim hasn't seen that. That's a brilliant idea. So Jim, you can choose to baseline in pieces as
Yes.
opposed to doing the whole thing locked down from the beginning. And based on how things evolve, you could baseline in a just-in-time manner. Yeah, exactly. Well, like what
Yes.
Darrell is showing.
And the interim is called the interim plan. It's more of the planning phase and more of a proposed type of schedule, because it sounds like you're encountering uncertainty.
yeah, there are some uncertainties. I mean, people will miss their deadlines, or right now in this world where we're at, we've got these ideas of supply chain issues
Ah,
up all the time.
so your resource is more focused on material then.
That's what it would be in that specific application. Yes, I'm more
Okay,
material related than I would
interesting.
people related.
It's interesting. Wow, definitely. And then also the other option is using ordinal days. Have you expressed that, Phil, to your students?
We've not looked at that yet. No, that's
Okay.
Another one I haven't seen.
Okay. I'm
There's a
gonna
lot.
defer that to Phil respectfully
there's-
as a colleague.
no, well,
So,
no, it's a very good one to talk about. So let's talk about that concept of elapsed days versus the actual days that you would say are allocated for work on a calendar.
that too, ED is also popular and it can be misinterpreted in some way, but ordinal days is more of the baseline planning of using uncertainty to your advantage. So there's specific, you can add, there's columns in here that you can add and use before striking a baseline. With ordinal days, you're able to project a projected type of baseline before you baseline, I guess, put it that way.
Oh, okay.
So it's more of taking the guesstimated baseline along with the start and finish dates, and to conclude it all is having two columns stating, okay, this is how long it's going to take. We're just going to take 20 days, and this is only guesstimating it. And that's the ordinal days column, which is, it's a pretty cool column to use.
So is it just literally named that, or would you customize that field, Darrell?
You could customize any field you want, to accommodate your environment or the stakeholders' appetite, if you put it that way.
So will Jim be able to find it as ordinal days and just use that as a baseline? Well,
Yeah,
provisional, if you will.
There's formulas connected to it, so I can definitely share that with you and your team, Phil.
That would be cool.
And how to create one and use it to your advantage when talking about baseline.
That will be cool. That will be very helpful. Thank
And,
you, Darrell.
No problem.
Renata, have you got any questions for Darrell? No questions?
No, thank you. I'm good. That is actually very enlightening.
Awesome. You can see that you can stretch MS Project to the ends of the earth. It will go wherever you want it to.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gathering.
Yes.
I didn't even think about using it with Agile.
Mm.
Nice.
And as Darrell alluded to, in the more recent updates, you can actually have a more Kanban view of the world. So we haven't even scratched the surface of that. We've just been looking more at the traditional, because you
Yes.
got other tools like Jira and Trello, and even Smartsheet is able. And I think the folks at Microsoft probably saw the Smartsheet people coming out with all of these innovative ideas, and they just followed. So now everyone is making provision for agile manipulation as well, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Darrell, thank you so much. I want to respect everyone's time. It's top of the hour. This has been invaluable. And I will just go ahead and stop the recording. And if there are any other questions, you can find Darrell on LinkedIn. Like I said, he's one of us from Praizion. So it's just like you, has been through all the trainings, the PMP, and as you can see, very proficient in the tool, just like I told you. So thank you, Darrell. We appreciate you. And he's doing all of this volunteer, by the way. He's just volunteering his time. So we appreciate you, Darrell. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you,
Darrell.
Phil. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Renata, for having me. It's a pleasure.